All right, welcome back, everyone. House Government Operations Military Affairs. It is 10:45, and we are picking up more work with witness testimony this morning on S206, an act relating to licensure of early childhood educators by the Office of Professional Regulation. And with us, we have Jeff Fannin, the Executive Director on NEA. How you doing, sir?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
Doing fine, doing fine.
Good morning. As the chair said, I'm Jeff Fannin, the Executive Director of Vermont NEA. Don't often come into this committee, so it's good to see some friendly faces and meet some new ones. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about S206. And I'll do some introduction of myself and Vermont NEA really to you so that you have it. I've got written testimony that I'll share afterwards and may make some changes depending on the questions that you may have. But first off, Vermont NEA represents about 16,000 educators in the state in the publicly funded school system. So that is both licensed teachers and education support professionals, ESPs as we call them, who are employed in those public schools, approved independent school, and therapeutic schools. Therapeutic schools being schools that deal with kids, if you don't know, mostly on IEPs and can't be educated in a regular school setting. We are supportive of the bill S206, but think there should be some amendments, language clarifications that will be helpful to clarify the problem to be solved and how best to address it without confusion. We're concerned about the word confusion in this matter. The bill has passed by the Senate would create an entirely new and separate licensure regulatory system for early childhood educators under the Secretary of State's Office of Professional Regulation, OPR, as you know it. Currently, this Vermont Standards Board for Professional Educators, VSBPE, or board, is a 13-member teacher majority board appointed by the governor that oversees the training, licensing, and professional standards of all Vermont teachers, including teachers who are endorsed as early childhood educators, ECE. VSBPE has 38 teacher licensure endorsements, including early childhood education and early childhood special education, because kids who are on IEPs, or for example, and young, are entitled to special ed services even before they get to the school system, public school system. And I'll just quote from the licensing regulations under the AOE Standards Board rules here. The holder of an ECE teacher license is authorized to teach young children birth through pre-K, pre-K through grade 3, or birth through grade 3 as specified in the teacher's endorsement. The endorsement, you have a teacher license, and then you get endorsed in certain areas. Early childhood educator and early childhood special educator are two endorsements. And that's in the rules, and I give you those in my written testimony. And as it relates to special ed teachers, special ed education, childhood special ed teachers, the holder of an early childhood special education teacher license is authorized to provide early childhood education, birth through preschool, and early intervention and special education services, including service coordination, case management, and comprehensive evaluation services to children from birth to age 6. So that's in current regulation now under the AOE's guidance. The Vermont Agency of Education provides administrative support and technical support to the Standards Board. Additionally, the Standards Board is a member of and supported by the Professional Educator Standards Board Education, which is under the auspices of the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification, NASDAQ as it's known. NASDAQ is the national entity that establishes teacher quality standards for all states to adopt in accordance with state policies and practices. NASDAQ also maintains the national database that tracks teacher licensure for reciprocity purposes, allowing for the mobility of properly licensed teachers across state lines, both in and out of Vermont, if you will. And moreover, and significantly, that database also tracks teacher license discipline to ensure the safety of students. So people who are disciplined in one state can't then transfer to another state and teach there without going through NASDAQ. And so that's the purpose of NASDAQ, is to track that. This background is important given the additional licensure structure S206 would create. The three proposed new early childhood educator licenses, as described in Section 3 of the bill, are early childhood educator 1, 2, and 3, or ECE1, ECE2, or ECE3. Vermont EA supports the bill's unstated intent to professionalize the early education workforce, to increase the wages of early childhood education professionals, and stabilize, therefore, the early education workforce to increase education opportunities for Vermont's parents. Vermont EA supports the establishment of the new OPR administered board for the licensure of ECE1 and ECE2. We do not support the establishment of the new ECE3 license, as it would be confusing given the almost identical requirements under the existing VSP, the Standards Board rules that I cited above. Indeed, the bill itself acknowledges the confusion between this new proposed OPR licensure system and the existing AOE Standards Board licensure system. If you look at Section 3, proposed Title 26 VSA, Section 26226, subsection 3, wherein the newly licensed early educator must disclose to families the difference between this proposed license and the existing AOE license. That's required in the bill if passed. This proposed section of law could be deleted, thereby eliminating any potential confusion by parents if you eliminate ECE3, as we suggest. Vermont public schools are providing pre-K education already, and in so doing, they are employing Standards Board licensed teachers already. The VSBPE requirements for pre-K teachers are almost identical to the proposed requirements in S206 for ECE3. In addition to generally recommending the elimination of ECE3 throughout the bill because it's redundant and confusing, we recommend changing the nomenclature from early childhood changing the nomenclature to early childhood professional 1 and 2, ECP 1 and ECP 2, so as to further obviate any confusion, which is similar to what the AOE proposed, and likewise similar to what the Child Development Division Deputy Commissioner Janet McLaughlin in her April 8th slide deck declared as reasonable. I'm not saying it's identical to what they said, it's similar to, they suggested reasonableness to ECEP. And I think just dropping the second E to ECP is a better way and a simpler way to go. If you have any questions, I'll be pleased to try responding to them. And I thank you very much.
Jeff, you said you had some amendments, and how many total?
Well, I don't know, because we're suggesting striking ECE3. It's the bills, got a lot of mention of that, understandably. So I didn't count how many, but it's just simply dropping the ECE3 as currently proposed in the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can eliminate as well that section I referenced, section 3, 26 VSA 6226, subsection 3. That's the section that requires somebody who's licensed under this new proposed regimen to disclose to families the difference between the two licensures, which seemed really confusing and perhaps more confusing to parents than necessary, I would suggest.
Did I see Rep. Hango's hand, Ben
Yes.
Waters Evans? Yes.
Thank you. If you haven't submitted your written testimony to our committee assistant, that would be really helpful. So I
Yes.
can reread it, but I hate to make you repeat this. In the very beginning of your testimony, you talked about the AOE licenses that are available currently. Would you please repeat that section?
Sure. Happy to. And I can change. This is good. I will edit and actually give you a link to their regulations. You don't have to look at all 223 pages. I did, and I have, but I'll link to it so you can have it. There are 38 different teacher licenses, endorsements under the AOE Standards Board. Standards Board is an independent board, but the AOE, it operates under the AOE for administrative support, technical support. I believe the AOE will be in tomorrow, as I understand it, to give you some testimony. I've heard rumors of that. I don't know. But they could be better able to answer that, Representative Hango. And I don't know if you want me to go more deep into that. It's a 13-member teacher majority board that regulates teachers in the state of Vermont now.
I think my question was, you had mentioned 3 different licenses or endorsements that are available, and whatever you said about them, I missed.
Got it. I apologize.
One was birth to pre-K, I think pre-K to grade 3 and birth to 3 is what I got, but I'm not sure I got that properly.
I may have confused you then. There are 30.
That's why this is so confusing.
That's good. And 2 of the endorsements are early childhood education is one, and the other is early childhood special education. And depending on the subset of endorsements, if you will, they have endorsements within that. For early childhood education, the holders authorized to teach, and I'm quoting here, the holders authorized to teach young children birth through pre-K, pre-K through grade 3, or birth through grade 3 as specified in their individual endorsements. Likewise, or similarly, special ed, early childhood special educators are authorized to provide early childhood education, similar, it's identical, I think. I believe it is. Birth through preschool and early intervention and special education services, including service coordination, case management, and comprehensive evaluation services to children from birth to age 6.
Thank you. I think that's the one I missed. And that's specific to special ed.
Yes.
Thanks.
Rep. Waters Evans?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to gather my question here. So I'm feeling like, and I asked this question of someone, I think from the AOE who was here last week when they were talking about the titles. And you're saying that it's going to be confusing for parents. It seems like possibly up until this point, it's already been confusing for parents. What exactly all these things, which is sort of the reason why we're considering this in the first place, right? Is to make it less confusing because there's sort of, it's all over the place-ish now. We're not, we don't do education stuff here. So if I'm not speaking the right language, but I guess my question is this, like when it comes to the title, I'm failing to see how that could be confusing. And it seems a little bit like it's trying to separate people into 2 kind of different classes of early childhood educator. And by class, I don't mean like classroom, I mean like status or something. You know what I mean? And I feel like if they're all going through these steps to become people who educate children in early childhood, I'm not seeing how that could be confusing for parents to call them educators when they are educators.
Yes, I think it's sort of, excuse me, maybe because schools are already providing pre-K, some are not. That's about weighting, gets in the education funding question to drive that. Some do it, some don't. They could be confused about somebody comes in to apply for a job in a public school setting that's providing pre-K, and they say, I'm licensed as an early childhood educator. That may be true under the OPR system, but schools are obligated under state law currently to employ teachers that are licensed under the standards board. And so that's where the confusion should be. I find it interesting that the proposed law for the bill would have the licensee, whether ECE 1, 2, or 3, having to disclose to families that the difference between their licensure and the AOE's standards board license. I find that I've been doing this for a little bit, that's unique to that. So I think that's demonstrating the confusion that we may be compounding. If you said there was confusion, I don't know that there is, but I won't argue with you. If we're going to try to clarify, I don't think passing a law particularly about ECE 3, that then obligates that person to then disclose to a family, as it says in the law or the bill, that he or she must disclose the difference between the two different license regimens. I don't think that's helpful, and it demonstrates a little bit to me the confusion here. Lastly, NASDAQ, the national body that sort of oversees this and tracks it on their database, they may be confused because other states don't have two systems. They have typically one system of licensing teachers. And so here we are creating potentially another license track for teachers. And that may confuse the national body and may interrupt the ability or the mobility of teachers to with reciprocity agreements. And I don't know the details of that. I'm not privy to that. But I think that may be another potential confusion that we should probably try to avoid.
What would be the sort of negative outcome of people being confused by this?
Well, I work in mostly the public school arena, so I would say administrators wouldn't know who's trying to apply for jobs, and I think people who think they have a license because they do under OPR would be perhaps mistaken in applying for a job in the public school system where you've got a law that says you have to have a teacher license under the standards board and not this other board. So I think it may confuse hiring practices in school. As well, retirement, which I do find myself in this committee talking about, is eligible to teachers who are licensed by the standards board, not this other board. So that might cause confusion. So you might have people working side by side in theory, hold two different licenses and are subject to two different sets of benefits and other things. So I think that's confusion that we typically try to avoid. And as for families, I don't know. I mean, it's been a long time since my kids were in early education. And one may be heading in the other provider end of it, but already. But I think it confuses the people who work there. And if families, you're right, they may not care who's working with their kids. They do abundantly care that they're high quality. And that's where I think the standards board is already going and humming along for years and years now. And we may have two different standards. We may have, they're close, but they're not identical. That's where families may be. Some centers may say, hey, we've got all of our teachers are licensed in the standards board, and others may promote the OPR board. And which is better, that kind of confusion for families. And so that's why that provision of law the bill seems odd to me.
Thank you.
Not sure I answered your question. I rambled a bit, but it's not an exact science about what confuses people.
Yeah,
I think.
of course. Well, that's good. Thank you.
Statement of the day for this building. Is that, yeah.
Yeah, so would you say like at a time when we're trying to make things more efficient, that this kind of seems to be going in a different direction as far as the way it's written now?
It does sound to me a bit incongruent with what the overall system discussion that we're having about the public education system, publicly funded education system. We're trying to create efficiencies of scale and other efficiencies. This seems a little out of step with that, I would suggest.
Okay.
But I think for EC 1 and 2, there is no corresponding licensure
Right.
under the standards board, but there is for 3. That would be the disconnect for me.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Fannin? Okay.
Thank you all. I will edit and adjust my testimony a bit and send it to you.
Yeah, and you're gonna stick with us through the end, right?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, just in case anything else comes up. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all.
All right, we're gonna shift over to our guests via Zoom. And we have Shannon Edmonds Folsom next, childcare manager, JP Resort. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. Am I coming through?
Yes, you are.
Wonderful.
As soon as we get Fannin out of the way.
Yes, I am well, and I'm excited to join you at a distance from, stone's throw south of the Canadian border. Good morning, everyone. For the record, I am Shannon Edmonds Folsom, and I am the childcare manager for Jay Peak Resort. I'm humbled to be invited to this committee to testify for S206, and it feels especially meaningful since I grew up in a military family. Both of my parents served in the Army, and my father retired in 2006 as a major after serving for 25 years. And it's entirely because of my father's military career that my family was relocated to Vermont in 1997. And it was my mom's decision to keep my brother and me in Vermont in no small part because of conversations with other service members stationed here that reassured her about the high quality of Vermont's public education. So as for my current role in early childhood education, I am the child care manager for Jay Peak Resort. In licensing terms, I am the program director of our licensed center-based childcare program and preschool program, and we also offer non-recurring services. Our program, Jay Peak Childcare, exists in this unique space insofar that it is a private business operated by Jay Peak Resort, but we do benefit from CCFAP funding, also known as subsidy, and Universal Pre-K Act 166 funding, which comes from the state and from the public school system. So we have access to Act 166 funds because I am also the Agency of Education licensed teacher for our Universal Pre-K program with a birth through pre-K endorsement. So this means that I split my time between the administrative side of the department, but I also still spend time directly in the classroom with my students. And I do support S206, and I testified my support for the bill at the Senate Committee for Health and Welfare back in January. So briefly, here are my reasons for supporting S206. So it provides a clear pathway to attract and retain new members to the ECE field. It provides further accountability for ECE professionals, which generates trust and security for the families we serve. It provides a clearer structure for employers to incentivize better compensation for early childhood educators. And it offers employers a clearer sense of qualifications and professional commitment to the ECE field when hiring and recruiting staff. As far as I understand, there is still a transition time built into this bill to last over several years to allow existing providers to gain licensure, while also providing inroads for new recruitments directly into this new system. There is also room for and a need for current providers to offer their knowledge and experience and bridge the best parts of our current practices to this new structure. It also provides an opportunity to further the conversation about the false divide between care and education and help destigmatize the ECE field as somehow less than the public education system. So in conclusion, I support S206 because it's an opportunity to take an actionable step towards stabilizing the early childhood education career field. And further, it's a systemic change that reflects Vermont's evolving values in prioritizing accessible, high-quality care and education for children and families. So thank you all for your time and consideration, and I'd like to offer any remaining time I have for answering any questions from the committee.
Matt Pango.
Thank you, and thanks for being here. I represent some of your neighboring towns around Jay, so I'm particularly interested in your program. What age children do you serve?
Absolutely. So overall, for both our recurring and non-recurring services, we are licensed to serve birth through 12, but we are staffed to best serve birth through 5 years. This is because when we offer guest services, right, that's our non-recurring. We offer that 0 to 4 because our group ski lessons start at 4 years old. So if they're 4 or older, we're trying to guide them towards our ski program. And then for our employees and local residents, we offer UPK. So typically then when a child is ready to transition into kindergarten, they're off into the public school system. So we're typically serving 0 through 5. And I hope that was a thorough explanation of the two pieces here.
It was, I was writing as you were talking, so guests are birth through 5, or 4 rather, birth through
We
4.
targeted for birth through 4. You know, I certainly have guests that call and say, hey, I have siblings and one of them is 7. Can you take them? And I say, well, absolutely, we can. Our license allows for that. But do please be aware that they will have much younger playmates, and you're the expert on your 7-year-old. If they're going to be happy here, we can take them. That's totally fine. But if they are going, I don't want to sit around with a bunch of toddlers, well, then ski school is literally the next room over, and you should give them a call, right? So that's the customer service piece of guiding the guest to their best experience.
And you are in very close proximity to the ski school program.
So-
Geographically, you're right next door to each other.
Well, interestingly, at J Peak, we have the gift of having 2 separate licensed spaces. So Tramside is our employee and our local resident center, and we exist sort of in our own little space here. And then the licensed childcare space that it is seasonally operated, that is in our ski and ride school building. So those are physically next to each other. And I sort of mostly live on Tramside, but I handle everything everywhere.
Great, thank you. And one last question. I know I was writing while you were talking. Staff is also served 0 through 12. Or 0 through 5, because they most likely will be going to the local public elementary schools, correct? Once they hit age 5.
Yes, exactly. And so that leaves open a question for, you know, potential growth for our program for like after school or for school breaks. So that if I had additional staff, if employees are saying, hey, I've got a 6 and 7-year-old, but I have to work during President's Week, you know, if I had more teachers, then I'd be able to serve that demographic. And that's definitely something that I'm working towards in the future.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that you're there for staff as well as guests. And you said some local residents as well choose your program?
Yes, I mean, that's why anyone's welcome if we have an open space. Anyone's welcome to see if they're a good fit. But it does take a very specific local resident who's not an employee that wants to drive up and down 242 every day.
Somebody who wants to ski every day. Thanks for being there.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions for Shannon? Seeing no hands. All right, if you don't mind sticking with us, if you have the time, that would be great. If anything pops up or you have any other comments based on the other testimony, feel free to stick around, Shannon.
Sure, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Up next via Zoom, we have Danny Sawtell. Did I pronounce that correctly?
That is correct.
All right, and you're a board member from Northshire Day School.
Also correct, yeah. So I'm vice president of a board of trustees at Northshire Day School in Manchester. Northshire Day School is a early childhood education center or community-based nonprofit, and depending upon the day of the week, we enroll anywhere between 90 and 100 children, infant to pre-K. I'm also a parent. I have 2 little boys, 9 and 5. The 9-year-old went to Northshire. The 5-year-old is soon to be graduating, which my wallet will be very happy about. So just speaking, you know, I think from 2 different perspectives on S206, which obviously I'm a major supporter of. You know, from a parent perspective, you know, this is a very difficult field for parents to navigate. There's no insight into the quality of these providers, right? So it's largely word of mouth, and you have to trust that the parent you talk to whose kids went there 10 years ago is still a safe place to send your children to on a full-time basis, Monday through Friday, right? 8 to 5. So there's very little transparency. And just professionally, I work in the financial services industry as a financial advisor, if somebody wants to work with me, they can go on any number of regulatory websites to find out my work history, to find out my licensure, my employers, my previous work history. None of that exists in this space. And in public school, obviously, we know that there are standards, there's licenses, and so we easily trust that school system. This does not exist in this space. So from a parent's perspective, when I talk to other parents, they are shocked to find out this doesn't already exist. So that's from the parent's perspective. From a program perspective, this is a difficult field to find more teachers. There's a significant shortage. We're constantly in fear of having to close classrooms because we have teachers that are out, that are sick, that are leaving to go work in the public school space. And programmatically, it's also very difficult because these programs, carry heavy liability insurance. Because if an employee harms a child, it's only the program that's responsible. So in our estimation, licensure ensures shared liability, better protects young children. For example, if we have to fire somebody for misconduct, they can go work at another program the next day. And likewise, we could end up hiring somebody without knowing their previous misconduct. So, this bill, this law is very much needed in this space, both from a parent's perspective and a program perspective. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone questions for this particular witness? Okay. All right. No, thank you for all of that. And I mean, we're still taking testimony. Ooh, Rep. Nugent, there we go. You got a hand.
I was just wondering if you could talk about, since your program works with early childhood 0 to 3 and then preschool, it sounds like, if you could talk about the needs of those two age groups and how you kind of think about best meeting them, how they are best met, and how those may or may not connect with each other.
No, that's a great question. Where we see the highest demand for childcare, our waiting list is almost 90 children deep at this point. And it's the vast majority of them are on the infant side, 0 to 3. And that's very difficult for programs like ours because of student to teacher ratio requirements, it costs us money, right, to offer 0 to 3 services. Pre-K, right, we can have much lower ratios, and so in essence, we're nonprofit, but that is, quote, our profitable space, so to speak. But pre-K, we're a pre-K partner, so it requires licensed educators. It does not technically from 0 to 3. The thing that we see from 0 to 3, that I think parents are surprised to find, until you get into this. We have about a third of our students that are in early intervention, development services. And because of the teachers that we have, who we're very fortunate to have are highly educated, more than half of them have bachelor's degrees in the space, we're able to quickly diagnose developmental deficiencies, get them the help that they need. And in most cases, by the time they leave our pre-K program and go to kindergarten, they're no longer on those services.
Anything else on this witness? Nope. All right. Thank you very much for your time, sir. If you want to stick around, feel free. And that moves us over to final witness on the agenda, Christine Byron Smith. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you?
Fine.
Good.
In case anybody couldn't tell by the obscure last name, We are related.
We are
So-
related, full transparency. That is my big brother. Oh, and also for full transparency, I am not a choir teacher. I was like, is this a joke?
It'd be good if it was intentional. I don't know how that happened.
I know, it would have been good if it was intentional.
see that.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Yes, I was like, we have.
Anyways,
Firearms are not known for their vocal.
I was ready to go update my LinkedIn profile and fix that typo. Good morning and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Christine Byron Smith. I am a nonprofit universal pre-K classroom teacher at Lincoln Cooperative Preschool in Lincoln, Vermont. I hold a birth through pre-K Vermont State Teaching License Level 2 and 2 master's degrees, one of which is in early childhood education. I would qualify for an ECE 3. I do not qualify for Vermont NEA representation, despite being qualified to teach in public schools. S206 would provide me an additional form of recognition and professional representation and protection that NEA does not offer me. I encourage you to support the ECE 3. So yes, I am here to speak to S206, specifically in regard to costs and program support. To do that effectively, I will first briefly talk about Act 76. Under Act 76, early childhood education programs were not required to use the increased funding that was provided through higher reimbursement rates and expanded eligibility to raise wages, but many did. I am a teacher in one such program that chose to allocate funds in this way, and it has contributed greatly to my financial security. In sum, early childhood education is seeing wage increases in the field, and I am one example of this. S206 builds on that progress by adding a layer of accountability to ensure those public investments are delivering the intended results. Importantly, we do not expect S206 to increase the cost of childcare for families. If anything, this legislation may generate savings for the state by streamlining regulations and improving systems within the Child Development Division for determining qualifications. There are also strong, thoughtful measures in place to support family child care providers. 2 key amendments strengthen this bill in this way. One to protect the current workforce and another to support future providers. The first is the creation of a family child care provider license. That acts as a legacy pathway, ensuring that anyone operating a family child care program in-home as of January 1st, 2029, can continue their work without disruption and effectively allowing them to be grandfathered. The second is that the bill establishes a conditional license for future providers. This allows individuals to open a home-based family child care with an ECE 1 license while giving them 6 years to obtain an ECE 2 license. This strikes a balance between maintaining program quality and ensuring the pathway into the profession remains accessible. It's also important to note that there are already incentives in place to support professional growth. Career ladder recognition bonuses provide wage supplements to early childhood educators who increase their qualifications, reinforcing a system that rewards advancement and continued education. In addition, the Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children is currently administering the Foundation Forward pilot. This innovative cohort-based model supports experienced early childhood educators in beginning their college education through assessment for prior learning. The program is free and includes mentoring, technology support, and dedicated guidance for early childhood educators. On average, participants earn 30 college credits, and it has been especially appealing to family child care providers. Together, these efforts reflect a coordinated approach, investing in the workforce, supporting providers at every stage, and ensuring accountability for public dollars. For these reasons, I respectfully encourage you to support S206 and continue building a stronger, professional, and more sustainable early childhood education system for Vermont. Thank you for your time and your commitment to Vermont.
Thank you very much. And if you could, when we're done, remit that written testimony to our committee assistant, so we'll have it on.
Yeah, I made some additional notes on it. Do you want me to add those in, type those up, and then send them over?
Absolutely, like no rush on it, tighten it up however you want to, but we'd like to have that for reference later.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Representative Pango.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine. What did you mean about not being eligible for Vermont NEA services? Because I don't understand.
Yeah.
If you're a licensed pre-K teacher.
Correct.
Universal pre-K.
Yes, and again, I would qualify for the ECE 3. So I don't qualify, even though I teach at a program that does receive, I'm a licensed teacher and I receive, and I have, a master's degree and all of that. I teach at a school that receives universal pre-K funding, so it does receive public dollars, but I don't qualify for union representation or anything like that because of the way that the union is structured, and we're boxed out of it.
Do you hold an AOE license? I missed.
I do. That is the Vermont State Teaching License. Yes, I have a level 2 license for birth through pre-K.
So that seems to me it's because you're spending part of your time delivering universal pre-K,
Yes,
and the rest of the time is your duties within the structure of the school that you're at that is not a public elementary school.
correct. I'm at a nonprofit preschool that receives UPK funding, and because even though I am very qualified to teach in a public school, I do not qualify for representation.
So that seems to me like maybe at some point in time, there could be like a partial qualification to be a partial union member. I don't even know how that would work for individuals in your situation. Thanks.
Any questions? Like you're working towards one?
I have so many thoughts and questions. Well, listen, they're all in here. I'm just, we don't ever really talk about education stuff in here. So it's a little,
and it's so convoluted.
it really is
Yeah.
complicated. And I have 3 children who are, almost grown. My youngest is in high school. So I've been through this. You went to the preschool at the Charlotte Children's Center, the portion that's in the church, part like the pre-K. But it was very, I guess the part that I keep struggling with and I keep coming back to is we have this bill that we're considering this licensure.
Correct.
And then it seems to me like whatever issues there might be with it, it seems like this is a path that's needed, right?
Yes.
It seems like many people feel that way, whatever the outcome or however it comes out, like that this is something important to do. And then I hear from people who say that they're concerned about the burden or the potential hardship that this would place on people who are essentially who don't maybe have a licensure, but are educating children in early childhood, who maybe don't have the funds or don't have the time to further their education.
Right.
So when I hear people say that, and then I hear people who are in your position and many other early childhood educators say that this is something that's necessary. Can you explain that dichotomy to it, like how those,
Sure.
how that reconciles itself?
Right. And so I'll reference again the fact that family child care programs that are established before January 1st, 2029, continue their work without disruption.
Yes.
And effectively, and they would be grandfathered, right? And so that kind of like works in the benefit of the people who are currently in the field or people who are going to enter sometime soon in the family child care capacity, right? And then also too, change is very hard. As professionals, like it's important that these standards get set, but they get set in a way that people aren't being blindsided. We're not just like all of a sudden dropping it in their laps and being like, oh, right now all of a sudden have to go back to school and go get a bachelor's degree or whatever. So that's not what's happening with the arc and the timeline of this bill. Also, too, for people who are adverse to me or nervous about going back to school, there are ways to support them with re-entry and with mentorship. And that's also too falls in line with what other professions do, right? They all have standards. They all have professional development requirements to maintain their license. And I think that that's what we want for Vermont's children is we want people who are continuing their professional development. They're staying up to date on what's the latest in developmentally appropriate practices and standards in the classroom and in the home setting and context as well for those who teach at home. Does that speak at all to, okay.
It does.
Okay.
Just trying to figure all of this out. And so then, do you see this bill then as taking a step toward kind of equalizing the field and the way that the child care providers are regarded, like as far as, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. And yes, absolutely. So I think what it also does is it helps to elevate how the public sees us and the work that we do, because, once upon a time with using, nurses as an example, nurses were not held in a super high regard for what they do, for their knowledge base, for their practices. And that has changed over the course of time. And part of the reason that has changed over the course of time is because the professionalization structure has elevated that perception of nurses because of creating very clear standardizations that the public is able to navigate. Like you're talking to somebody who's going through, some health stuff. And when you say like LNA, RN, nurse practitioner, those kinds of terms, people often can recognize that, right? And so that has helped to elevate their profession and also help people understand how their systems work as workers. And so I feel like this bill and the structure within it has potential in order to help do the same kind of scaffolding in terms of public perception and also with how we perceive ourselves, because also early childhood educators, there are people like myself who are very proud and I am here and I've got all the street cred. And then there are also people who are kind of feeling a little bit lost and don't see themselves as a professional and they're just starting and they're just trying to navigate their first professional developments. And so providing a base floor for that entry would also help support people who are coming into the field too, with getting a footholding on how valuable our work is and how it is professional work.
Thank you.
Okay.
So many more things to say, but I mean, honestly,
Marinate on that. I got a hint from Rep Stone, so you marinate on that forward-thinking thought of yours.
yes, I don't have to say everything that comes into my mind either.
I do every fifth thing.
I was just wondering if our previous witness from the NEA just wanted to offer some clarity about some of the stuff that was mentioned about unions and the NEA, just to get their perspective on
Yeah.
that commentary. That might be beneficial.
Sure, and I actually had a question pertaining that for our witness now, because there was that reference point,
Yeah.
so maybe I'll do that with this witness, which we can shift. Any other questions before I jump into it? Okay, so you had brought up that component about like not being represented within the NEA.
Correct.
Broadly with educators that you're speaking to with this licensure. So wasn't there an attempt, and I'm just going back into like my brain in the semi Wayback Machine, wasn't there an attempt for folks from your sector to try and integrate and join into the NEA a few years ago? Like I remember it sort of occurring. I don't remember like the detail or nuance of what transpired.
Yes, but if I'm also dusting off cobwebs from that moment in time correctly, I believe that was not NEA, that was AFT.
Oh, it was AFT. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, wrong acronym.
Yeah, yeah.
So but to that point, that is a teachers union.
Mhm.
Do you recall how that played out?
I just recall that it just went kaput, that there wasn't, that things got really, really sticky, and that it was just unable to get the traction to move forward because there were a lot of discrepancies between how it would be structured, how early educators would fit in, and it just ended up being almost like a non-starter kind of a thing.
No, because I mean, as we move forward into this.
Again, that's me trying to dust off like very old cobwebs. Yeah.
Respect on that. Yeah. So, but I mean, as we're having these conversations about relationship, right? Like
Right.
infections, status.
Right.
It would only be logical that there would be conversations about attaining a professional relationship and representation within a union structure, right?
Right. Right.
Okay.
That, and also, like I said, I just want to also emphasize that one of the primary reason that I did bring up the ECE3 and not having representation from the NEA is the fact that that the ECE3 in this bill would provide us who qualify for ECE3 with professional recognition and things like that, that the NEA, would not be able to provide to us.
Okay.
Because of the way that they are structured and the fact that we don't fit into their structure framework.
Representative Hooper, I see you have.
What year was the AFT? Between your cobwebs.
I do not recall off of the top of my head what that would be. I can do any of.
Anybody in the gallery recall when that one went down?
No.
Okay.
2014, I'm suggesting.
I know, I feel like it was a while back.
It was a while. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Hence the comments. Okay, any other questions for this witness? Because it looks like we're gonna shift back to Mr. Fannin for a hot minute. No?
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the last question, I think it was 12 or 14. I did.
That seemed to be the general consensus.
Yeah, it's a while ago.
Yeah.
Cobwebs are dusty in all fairness to everybody in the room. We were involved in the periphery, and your previous witness was right, was AFT. So that we were involved, but only on the distance. As it relates to Vermont NEA and representing early educators, we do, so the way unions work is employees, we would welcome you in our ranks. We have many teachers from pre-K to 12 in public school settings, in private school settings, and we would welcome you and your colleagues. The way it's done is under state law is employees choose their certified representative, which is a union. And that's done by employer. And unions bargain with employees' employer as a certified bargaining representative of those employees in that bargaining unit. So certainly your previous witness would be eligible to be in our union where her colleagues and she choose to be represented by Vermont NEA. So it's not by virtue of licensure that one is in or out of Vermont NEA. We represent both licensed teachers and education support professionals who are not licensed. So that's paraprofessionals, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodial folks. So those are, that's the gamut that we cover. And it's merely, not merely, but we cover them because those employees have chosen us to represent them in matters of collective bargaining on the terms and conditions of their employment.
Rep. Angle.
Thank you. So if Ms. Byron Smith and her fellow workers wanted to be represented by a union, they would just need to get the required number of members to vote to say they would like to join a union, no questions asked.
Well, I can't speak for the employer.
Correct.
There may be
No
questions.
asked by your
Yeah, but we-
Yeah, that's a great clarification.
Yeah, I served on general on housing,
Yes,
so I should
I
know what
know
I'm
you.
talking about.
That it did. So yes, as a general matter, we're a membership organization. We value our members very much. And whether they're pre-K or high school or middle school, we have all types of members and we welcome them and we need them and we value them.
And that's because they are employed in a private setting. But on the flip side, your public school teachers are automatically.
No.
No.
So, I mean, public school teachers over the many years have decided to become represented by us. I think we have every single public school, there may be one out there, but we also represent teachers and unlicensed educators in non-public schools. And that's a growing area, if you will, because there's more need for that outside the public school setting. The needs of kids have changed and schools are looking to address those in different ways. And those employees in those other settings have come to us seeking representation.
I think I phrased that poorly. So the public schools already have a path provided for their employees to become union members fairly easily because it already exists. The teachers and the staff in one school already are members of the union. But for somebody like this who works in a smaller private setting that doesn't already have the mechanism set up, they would have to initiate it themselves. Whereas if I'm a new teacher and I go to work at the Berkshire Elementary School, there's already a pathway set up. My colleagues already belong to the union. All I have to do is sign the union card and I'm in. Whereas in this situation, it doesn't already exist. So I think that's what I was getting at, what the difference is.
And employees who are employed where there is an existing union in Vermont don't have to join the union.
Right.
That's voluntary. We're a volunteer organization. And likewise, employees in private settings, pre-K or otherwise, could form a union. And there's a process laid out in state law about how that happens. And that's done regularly. I'll say that.
Just takes a little more work to set it up.
Right, why? Because there's already set up in a public school setting, to use your example, where the teacher, newly employed teacher has the option of coming in the door to join the union or not.
Okay, thank you.
So that's kind of how we work. Again, I'll just close by saying we do support S206. We just suggest changing, and we value very much and should understand the need to professionalize the private or public or the pre-K setting. Generally, we do know and understand, as some of the witnesses testified, the difficulty in obtaining and retaining employees in this regard. It's important, and to professionalize it, we think is the right thing to do. We support that, and we support it as the ECE or ECP, whoever you want to use it, 1 and 2. We just want to address the confusion by not saying that to 3, because they're already able to be licensed under the standards.
Okay. Anything else in the follow-up round for Mr. Fannin? Nope.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Happy to,
Yeah, I figure you're here. Why not? We have a few minutes before lunch.
sure,
Please.
happy to, join now. I don't have my security blanket, which is my notebook.
I got a spare.
I don't have. Jennifer Cohen, Director of the Vermont Office of Professional Regulation. Thanks. And great to see so many people engaged in this conversation. And we also love hearing all of your questions. So that's great, because everybody really needs to understand the bill, the implications, the pathways, all of that's really important, because this is a workforce that's asking for professional regulation. This is a workforce that's asking for ECE3, which I'm going to talk just a little bit about. I think it's important that we all understand the implication and the details. So just to speak very briefly to the Vermont NEA's thoughts or concerns about confusion. I'm a licensed professional, and I know under my license where I can work and what positions I can apply for. And I don't think there's a real concern that if somebody goes through a program to become licensed at the Vermont Office of Professional Regulation, that they're going to try to get public school teaching jobs. I mean, we're not trying to take public school teachers out of the market. So one of the measures that we've already talked about having when people are applying is a threshold question of, do you want to teach public pre-K or do you want to teach in a public school? If yes, go to AOE. The application stops, hard stop. Okay, so we're not only going to have a lot of transparency in the way the law is written and on our website, but also as people are applying for that license, they'll know this is not going to get you into a teaching position in public school. So if there could have been any confusion about that, I think just that application process in and of itself will dispel that. Yes.
Revenue.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, because it sounds like part of the request is to professionalize the occupation so that people, like the public, recognizes.
That's right.
So could you talk about how the title, I guess I have a couple of questions. Would you entertain changing the title for that and or if part of it is recognition on the part of the public? It seems to me that could potentially get in the way of that recognition if the license title is the same for those two pathways. So
yes, part of this effort is to streamline requirements so that the public knows what the qualifications are of the people who are providing care for their young children, the lead teachers and the assistant teachers in programs across settings. So that's one thing, to streamline those qualifications so that the public will understand that. The word educator was intentionally kind of chosen to be in the title because these folks are educators. So to take that title out or to change that to something else, Representative Waters was talking about the other day, this undercurrent of like a respect. And if we don't call these folks educators, which is what they are, it's really not respecting their professional preparation. So we felt that that was important to acknowledge and respect that professional preparation. And it's an important piece for the public too, to recognize that these are folks who will have qualifications that require education.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, not yet, not formed.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
When you talk about people in the field wanting this, could you talk about the survey that has been referenced, who it was sent to, when it was sent, and how you gathered the information, just to make sure that you are getting a diverse set of voices? Because we've only heard one side in here, really, truly, which is, people in the profession who want it. But I know that there's another side. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about that survey, when it was sent, how long it was sent, who it was sent to, like giving us some background information.
Right. So the survey was not a survey that OPR did.
Okay.
So I can't talk about it because that wasn't part of the work that we did. Vermont AEYC, I believe, will be coming back in to testify at some point, or maybe they hope to, but they would be the ones to better answer those questions. I do know that there was a lot of outreach within the profession to people across settings and across the state. And there was testimony actually yesterday in House Human Services about that as well. So I'm sure they'd be happy to speak to that. Something else that I just wanted to mention with respect to the ECE3, there are plenty of people working in early education in the private settings that have bachelor's degrees that aren't AOE licensees. And those folks want professional regulation. They want professional accountability. They want a professional license, but they don't want to do that through AOE. Like, they are part of this group that wants this professional license. They don't get the benefits that public school teachers get. They don't get retirement. They don't get summers off. They don't, it's a different landscape for those folks and significantly different settings. So those are folks that want this ECE3 designation, and they're asking for it. The other thing that I want to also mention is that the National Education Association supports this effort and has been one of the architects of model legislation so that professionalizing the early education workforce can move forward in other states. So while the Vermont chapter of the National Education Association wants some tweaks to this, the model language was in part through the work of the National Education Association. They're one of the organizations that's on the professional excellence, early education professional excellence commission. I'm getting the name wrong, but so they do support this effort, and ECE3 is part of the effort that they support.
And I got a hand up digitally from Shannon from JP. Shannon.
Hi, guys. Thank you for letting me jump in. And so coming at this from the perspective of, I just realized, can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Sometimes my headphones really mess everything up. So coming at this from the perspective as well, who runs a childcare center. So we serve birth through, the youngest infants we can take is 6 weeks, right? And so what I want to touch on a little bit is something I had mentioned about this false divide between care and education. When you are taking care of a 6-week-old infant, yes, you are caring for them, but you're also educating them. There is a lot of child development theory and intention that goes into care for children under the age of 3, because there is a lot of conversation here about pre-K, which is valid, but we also need to open the door to respect, licensure, and the acknowledgement of the immense training that it can take to be a high quality infant teacher or a high quality toddler teacher. 90% of your brain is formed before the age of 3. And for example, when there's a licensing requirement that says any child that is not old enough to hold their own bottle must be held while bottle feeding, that is pretty much a direct reference to Erik Erikson. And the idea of building trusting relationships by modeling trusting relationships by giving them. That's why infant ratios are so small, right? 1 to 4. You can only have 4 infants per teacher. So to kind of lock them out of potential recognition or licensure simply because, well, they just work with babies. No. We need them to work with those babies so that they are regulated and confident and engaged children when they get to pre-K, right? All of this is part of a continuum. So I just kind of wanted to sort of put in a plug for our very beloved and very underrepresented infant and toddler teachers as well. So thank you for letting me jump in. Appreciate it.
No, of course, not a problem at all.
And I hope that we'll be able to come back again, because I know a lot of questions have been raised in different committee meetings when I wasn't able to attend, and would love to just provide additional information on questions that have been asked and any lingering questions that you have. And also feel free to just reach out by email if there's any clarification you need on any components of this.
Yeah, we certainly had every intent of having you back in on this to follow up on the testimony.
Great.
Anything else for our OPR director right now before? Yes, Mr. Fannin from the gallery.
I'd like to, Jeff Fannin again, Mon NEA. It's true, NEA worked on this. I think you're overstating. What they agreed to was that NACE, the NACE rules should be followed. And my understanding from them is that NACE would say you should have one, follow the standards board, national, singular licensing board. So suggesting that means that all of a sudden they would like a dual licensing track for teachers that are eligible under the state standards board to also have another track under the ECA is, I think, not accurate. I can double check that. That's my understanding.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we have our information
Yes, we
correct
should.
on that before we're back.
Okay, that'd be appreciated. I'd like to understand that as crisp as possible, the
Yes.
trajectory on this project. Yes. All right, anything else before we hit the timeout button for lunch? There's no comments. All right.
Thank
Nick?
you.